Welcome to this week's Single Sales Principle webinar. And today we're very much talking about testing motivation. Now, testing motivation is probably one of the most difficult parts of the Single Sales Principle, but in turn, the most important. And today we're going to look at how do you turn those needs, potentially passive needs, into compelling needs. And very much the science behind that. So, we all have needs. We all have problems to be solved and desires to be achieved. So many so, in fact, that actually, are we going to do them all? Sometimes salespeople go into organisations and they compile a whole list of needs and they're thinking, whippy, we're going to really create some great orders here because this company needs our products so much. The challenge is, do they have the budget to actually deal with all of the needs on that shopping list? So really the key essence of selling is understanding the critical needs, the compelling needs, the ones that will truly make a difference to their organisation. Because we do all have needs. Personally, you know what? Most of us, if you're male, would quite like a six-pack. Many of us dream of that dream job, and wouldn't it be lovely to have, a wonderful family with kids, and wouldn't that be fabulous? For some of you, you're thinking absolutely not, but for many of us, then having that lovely family would be nice. Well, there's a problem. Everything has a price, whether it be the cost in terms of money, whether it be the time it takes to actually do it, the risk involved with actually getting involved with that, or indeed just the hassle of changing the status quo and doing something different. So if we think about that, the six-pack, there is a price. You're going to have to spend a lot of time down the gym, and you're going to have to be doing those horrible crunches, and you're not going to enjoy it much. And do you know what? The enjoyment bit, which may be the beer and the pizza, you've got to cut that out. To get a six-pack like that guy, you pretty much got to have 6% body fat or something. You can't get that by drinking the beer. And in terms of the dream job, well, do you have to go back to college? Do you have to study? Do you have to really get stuck into those textbooks? Or what about the stress of that dream job? What we don't see is the late nights where the guy's working hard or the lady's actually getting stressed out with the amount of pressure that is put upon these senior executives. And lastly, the family. Well, those of you who have kids, you'll appreciate the changing of the nappies is not always the most pleasant of job. And you remember those sleepless nights? It wasn't pleasant. Not sure whether I'd want to go through those again. So everything has its price. So I believe the single most important question to ask in any sales intervention is this: what if you did nothing? What if you do nothing at all? What if you just carry on the way that you are? That's such an important question, because that will identify truly whether or not you have a compelling need. Why do nothing? We absolutely need to outweigh, and we talk a lot on Single Sales Principle about the amount of need outweighing the cost of the solution. In any cost of solution, there will be potentially risk, there will be hassle, there will be a cost in terms of maybe time, in terms of monetary value. All of this has a cost. So I absolutely need to need it more than I'm going to have to pay for it. So I love this diagram because there was Connie Wong and basically Donna Baker came up with, for kids, they understood that there was an issue with kids being able to explain how much pain that they were in. So it made it difficult to administer the right medicines. So they identified this faces of pain rating scale, whereby 0 was happy face, no hurt at all, and 10, absolutely cry my eyes out, hurts the worst. And I think as salespeople we need to think similarly. We need to not only identify a need, identify a pain, but then really start to test how motivated that customer is to actually deal with that pain. If they're kind of on the 0 to 4 scale, I'm suggesting that's a passive need, not a compelling need. And quite frankly, you're probably not going to be able to sell that solution purely on that need. So we need to increase the amount of hurt to get an increased amount of motivation. So in this equation, more hurt equals more motivation to actually deal with that need. So let's take a look at the car scenario. We'll talk a lot on the program about this scenario, and there may be various needs that we have to want to buy that car. It may be independence, it may be safety, it may be to have a warranty, it may be for status, okay? So there's various needs that I have, but what is the cost of that? Well, if we purely think about monetary terms, I could probably buy a car that will give me independence, but probably under £5,000, okay? But that's okay because that works. But if I want a car that I truly feel is safe and gives me independence, I'm probably have to double that amount of money. I'm now probably talking, I don't know, around about £10,000 for a truly safe, independent car. Okay, then if I want a warranty, that indicates that maybe there's a relative of newness about it. So then, okay, we need to start upping our game again. At this point, maybe it's around about £25,000. And then lastly, status. If I want something that my next door neighbours will think, wow, Mark's clearly doing well, then I'm probably looking at the 50 grand above sort of mark. So it truly does depend on what my need is to how much I'll pay for it. Now we would all love, I'm sure, a really, really smart, prestigious motor car. But are we prepared to pay the cost to get that? Or we'd all like trouble-free motoring, whereby there's a warranty that covers anything that goes wrong. But are we truly prepared to pay the price for that warranty? And so on. So we need to test how motivated we are, how important those various needs are, to actually whether or not we're going to pay for those needs. So let's take a look at the definition of motivation. It's a reason or reasons for acting or behaving in a particular way. And this is so important because it's having a reason. What are the reasons for us doing these particular behaviours? So we talk about testing motivation is really the idea of getting your emotional and rational needs, identifying how motivated you are to deal with them, and then realising that they're compelling needs. That's very much what we're doing, and one of the easiest ways of doing that is identifying what is the consequence of doing absolutely nothing at all. So I said this is very much going to be about the science of testing motivation. So let's look at a couple of theories that hopefully will explain really how we identify motivation in various different ways. One of them is the expectancy theory by Victor Vroom. Now, he very much identified this theory around about 50 or so years ago and explains the behavioural process in which an individual makes decisions in relation to their goals. He discusses how individuals will be motivated towards their goal if they believe that the outcome meets their needs enough to make the effort worthwhile. And he has a lovely simple equation that explains this. It's M equals E times I times V. Well, what does that mean? Well, motivation equals expectancy times instrumentality times valence. So let me just explain just what each of those terms mean. So firstly, let's talk about expectancy. It's the effort required to achieve the goal. And he breaks that down into three different areas. First of all, it's your ability or your knowledge to be able to complete that task. So it's a self-understanding of, can I do this thing in the first place? Secondly, it's how difficult the goal is to achieve. And then thirdly, it's your perception of how much control you have to be able to do that in the first place. So very much looking at this whole task that needs to be done. Can I do it? Is it difficult to do? And is it within my power to do it? Secondly, instrumentality. This is the reward that you are going to receive for absolutely achieving that goal. And that links with valence because how much value you place on getting that prize, if you like. So, looking back at the M equals E times I times V, putting it all together, do I have the ability, knowledge, how difficult it is, can I control it, will I be rewarded for it, and will I value the reward? Is it absolutely worth it? Another theory that I think links to this is the temporal motivation theory by Steele and Koenig. And these guys were very much studying the area of procrastination. So what's the science of putting something off? Which I think a lot of customers tend to do. I'm sure you will agree with me. So these guys put the motivation into a simple formula, really looking at how motivated we are, and it's really useful because it starts to help us understand some of the questions that we should be asking. So he talks about expectancy times value divided by impulsiveness times delay. So let's take a look at these in a little bit more detail. What does he mean by motivation? Well, very much they mean by motivation the desired outcome that you expect. Expectancy, self-efficacy. I'll explain that a little bit more in detail in a moment. Thirdly, value is reward for doing this. Impulsiveness is how sensitive the individual is to the delay. And then lastly, the delay is how much time is there left before the desired outcome needs to be achieved. So they suggest that put that formula together, you start to get an understanding of absolutely the degree of motivation that the individual has to absolutely achieve the desire. So let's take a look at these in a bit more detail and put it into plainer English. Expectancy. Can I do it? Let's remember what we spoke about last time. Do I have the ability? Do I have the knowledge? Do I have the control to do this? How difficult is the task? Value. Is it worth it? Is it worth doing in the first place? So I need to weigh up, first of all, the amount of reward I will get at the end times the effort and my ability to do that in the first place. Then in terms of procrastination, we go under the line to start to understand, okay, what would be the consequence in me delaying this thing? Okay, and that's where the impulsiveness comes in. How quickly do I need to act on this thing? And lastly, how long is there left to actually deliver it? If the deadline isn't for a long way away, and we know in SSP we talk a lot about scarcity, well, if absolutely there's no urgency right now, that would obviously delay it quite considerably. So time has a huge influence on whether or not I will be motivated to deal with this in the first place. So in terms of some questions that we could ask around this, let's start thinking about value, the reward that the company will get if they do this. Now this is where we start to very much test the motivation. What would happen if you did nothing at all? What's the impact or consequence of this issue that we've discussed? That's the pain. On the gain, what would be the benefit of you actually dealing with this situation? Okay, what's the benefit of you achieving that desire that we spoke about earlier? So what is the reward for either dealing with the pain or the desire of what you're trying to achieve? Secondly, let's take a look at delay. Are there any deadlines that are going on there? Okay, are there any moments, compelling events, lines in the sand that we have to deliver this by? Wow, that if we know that, we're starting to build that compelling need. Okay, or when would you like this implemented? And why would you like that implemented? Let's take a look at impulsiveness. What are the costs of delaying? If you don't do it now, how is that going to cause you an issue? What's stopping you from doing it now? So what's preventing you from actually doing that? And that leads a little bit to the next piece, because there we're talking about the knowledge and ability to do that in-house. So do you have the knowledge and ability to do this right now? Is this something that is in your control? Are there external influences that are coming in to actually do this? Is it your decision? Is it someone else's decision? Is it market forces that could influence it? Are there market forces that could influence this? And how easy would it be to implement this? They're very much the questions that we're going to ask. Because once we start to build those 4 areas, we can then start to make our recommendation against those. So we need to demonstrate the proposition. If we think about the whole procrastination, you need to highlight what is the cost of delaying this or doing nothing at all. That's absolutely key to ensure they're not procrastinating, they do understand the line in the sand and they do actually get on with the job. And then secondly, above the line, of course, you need to highlight and demonstrate how you can make it easier for them to actually deliver. So very much you've taken a look at their lack of ability or knowledge to do it, that maybe they don't have control or that's causing them an issue, or they do perceive that this is quite a difficult task, and you can simply take that off them and deliver it for them. So, I hope you've enjoyed this webinar, all about testing motivation. Very much trying to turn a passive need or just a basic need into a compelling need that truly motivates them to act. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to speaking to you next time.